recording here. All right, so I'd like to welcome everybody to our May 28th new Grantee-Staff Transition Committee meeting today. Our topic is gearing up for summer, which is going to be presented a little differently than when I first planned this out back in the fall when we started this committee. So, sorry, get the agenda going here. We're going to start with some attendance and roll call, and you'll see it's going to be a short attendance today. So if you wouldn't mind, please introduce yourself and the site you're working for, and then just give us one summer activity that you're looking forward to. And again, I know some of our summer activities might have changed pretty dramatically, but what's something that you're looking forward to? And if it's okay with you, I'll just call you out on my screen so we avoid kind of that disruptive, you know, somebody talks at the same time type of thing. And I'll start with Alyssa.
Good morning, I am Alyssa Gerhardt from North Fayette Valley, and I am looking forward to a week of camping with my family, just kind of out in nature and enjoying.
Oh, Alyssa, do you guys have a designated spot that you go to or a park that you like to visit, or?
Kind of wherever the wind takes us.
Sure, sure.
So
I have a coworker that I think is heading up to Backbone this weekend. So that's such a beautiful park. So
that is one of our favorites.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Alyssa. Megan, do you mind going next?
I'm Megan Bogdan. I work in Cedar Rapids. And summer activity, I guess, would be travel plans, hopefully for the 4th. So.
Yeah, yeah, really. So, well, good luck. I hope that doesn't change or anything.
Yes.
So, yeah, all right. And then Julia, if you don't mind going.
Julia Bruner with Micah in Marshalltown. I guess the summer activity I'm looking forward to is just spending time outside and grilling out and soaking in some sun.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Vic, do you want to tell us your summer activity plans this morning?
Well, it's still kind of iffy. You never know what's going to happen. I'm hoping to go to Michigan to spend some time with the grandkids, and we'll probably go to Michigan and Wisconsin this summer.
Very nice. Very nice. So,
and, I am Vic Jarvis, Iowa Department of Education.
Yes, thank you. All right, and I'm Crystal Hall with the Iowa After School Alliance, and fingers crossed that we will be able to have a graduation party for my oldest daughter, who unofficially graduated 2 weeks ago. They'll be doing a ceremony for her in August, but we have a huge family, and it would be really nice to be able to get together at some point over the summer, if possible, to have a graduation party for her. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Okay, so today's presentation, what we're going to be talking about today is kind of a mix of two different types of things here. So we're going to be talking about what would have been normal for summer, and then how we're adjusting to COVID-19 and the response for summer that way. So throughout this presentation, I've tried to identify, you know, normally this is what would happen, but in response to COVID, this is the way we're tweaking it. If at any time you have questions, please, please, please stop to interrupt me. Vic, if there's anything that you want to add to anything that I'm saying, please interrupt me to do so. Also feel free to use the chat box if that is better for you or makes more sense. But again, we're just going to try to talk about what would be expected of you, say, for example, next summer, providing everything is fine. And then thinking about, you know, how you might make adjustments to your programming this summer if you're even having programming this summer. And we'll talk about that too. So last Thursday, the 21st, Vic sent out an email to the site directors that included this guidance. from the Iowa Department of Education. And clearly this is a very small document. It was not necessarily meant for you to be able to fully see on the screen, but I just wanted to let you know that the guidance is there. When we post the webinar today on our website, Vic, unless you say differently, we'll go ahead and post this guidance sheet along with it. If any of you did not receive this guidance and want a PDF copy of it, please let me know and I'm happy to forward it to you. But the Department of Education has put together some information and guidelines as it pertains to start dates, proper hygiene, proper pickup and drop off for parents, cleaning and sanitizing, and then also how out of school time connects to the school district's return to learn plan, which is due to the state of Iowa by July 1st. Vic, is there anything else that you would want to maybe more specifically address in this guidance that was sent out today for our group?
Yes, keep in mind that you should all be thankful, I know I am, that we're in Iowa. Iowa's using a lot of common sense. We're a local control state, and most of the change is going to happen at the local level, and you're going to determine it. I mean, these are general guidelines. Let me give you an example. I just got an email in from Pennsylvania. They've come up with 8 different COVID scenarios, and you get to pick one of the 8. And a lot of these states are trying to micromanage this, and oh my God, that's just a recipe for confusion. Nobody knows better how to reach the local kids and your local community than you. So I take the position that I'm here to support you, and also to keep you aware of some of these federal regulations as we move forward. So I try to take a minimal approach, giving you the facts, keep you out of trouble, without trying to tell you this is exactly how you need to do this. That should be determined at the local level always.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Vic.
Mm-hmm.
Pause here though, just to see if anybody has any questions about the guidance that was sent out last week. Okay. So if anything changes, please don't hesitate to reach out to Vic or myself, and we'll be happy to walk alongside you with this. Okay, so during the summer, in a normal situation, data collection would be a huge part of your framework. So first and foremost, people get a little bit nervous when we talk about data collection, so never fear, we put together a template for you that can be found on the 21st Century website. You can see I have the link right here, and it's located about halfway down the page. It's identified as the Summer APR Tracking Tool. So it's an Excel spreadsheet that you can download, you can turn into whatever you need it to be for your particular programming. But during the summer months, again, normally, you can expect to collect the following types of data. So first and foremost, attendance. We are wanting to know who your kids are. No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. We don't necessarily need to know who your kids are. We just want to know how many kids are attending. So, and how many days they attended. You'll also be expected to provide some input about the school site, center, building, whatever, however you designate your spots, grade, and we actually recommend using the grade they just completed, because then that way it aligns better with the previous APR data that you've put in for the school year. You'll also be expected to record demographic data, so gender, age, race, ethnicity, things of that nature. We do ask you to document the number of free and reduced price lunch students And one thing that I would say to this is many of your sites or schools provide 100% free lunch to the entire building. That does not necessarily mean you have 100% free and reduced price lunch. You should still be able to work with your district to get those numbers because often they're very high, you know, 80, 85, 90%, something of that nature, but it's generally not 100%. So do your best with that. And if you need assistance, please reach out to Vic or myself, and we'll see if we can make some connections for you. We also want to know if the student is an LEP or a special needs learner. Again, just some very basic information, and you'll see on that spreadsheet, and actually let me click on the link right now, and I'll have to apologize. It does take a bit of time to get this up and going. So can everybody see the web screen on in your view right now? Julia, I'm going to pick on you for a minute. Can you see the Iowa21cclc.com website right now on your screen?
No, it's still on your PowerPoint, the data collection normal.
All right. Sometimes I got to click and click. So.
Oh, there we go.
All right. Thank you. All right. So if you look down here for templates, here's our APR data collection spreadsheet for summer. So I'm going to click on that. And this will be an Excel spreadsheet. So let me share this document now. All right. Can everybody see the Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to start actually with the third tab, which is what we just talked about. So on the screen, you can see we have a spot for cohorts, your school, the student's information here, and that's primarily for your benefit. This document is not shared with us. We want to be sure that we're holding information private, but you can use this information to track your individual student data. We have columns for gender, ethnicity, LEP learners, free and reduced price lunch, special needs students, and then the total days that they attended here. So I'll come back to this in just a moment so that, again, we can continue to talk about what types of things and where you can collect it on that template. So program sites, this is kind of your normal slide number 2. Program sites should also expect to track your program offerings. So for this one, what we're talking about is your activities, what you're doing. So your STEM, literacy, tutoring, entrepreneurship, community or service learning, mentoring, things of that nature. You'll also want to track how many times those programs were offered. And I've listed out the choices in this PowerPoint, but again, I'll show you on the spreadsheet in just a moment. How long the programs lasted in duration, how many youth participated, and then if the program is a college or career readiness plan. Additionally, we're going to ask you to track your staffing pattern. So it's going to want to know things like how many administrators did you have during the time period, paid staff, college students, community members or volunteers, and so on and so forth. So let me hop back over to the spreadsheet so you can see where we're talking with this. So on the spreadsheet, you can see here on column A3, STEM. So I'm assuming that most of you would do STEM activities at some point during your summer programming, and we've built in drop-down menus during this as well. So how many times did you do STEM? You didn't do it at all. You did it monthly, once per term, and that could be defined as the summer month, more than once a week, or more than once a month. And then your next column will ask you how many times per, however, what you've indicated So did you do it 2 times per term? Did you do it 4 times per week? And so on and so forth. Here's times per month. And then in column E, now we're asking you to indicate how long the session was. And again, you'll see that these are estimates. So if you do 30 minutes of STEM every day, you would put that you do this more than once a week. You do it 5 days a week, if that's how long your program lasts, and then less than an hour. And then column F wants to know about your attendees. So you had more than 30 kids participate. And was this college or career readiness? You can indicate yes, no, or not applicable. Down here is when we're talking about the types of staff members. So we have administrators. So how many paid administrators? And this means paid out of grant funds. And if they're not paid out of grant funds, then you would indicate that they're volunteer. And then you'll go down the rest of the list and indicate as such. So I'm going to use Megan as an example in Cedar Rapids. So the principals at the 2 buildings at which Youth Court is doing programming are huge supporters of the program, but they are not paid out of the grant. So when Megan does this particular part of this spreadsheet, she would indicate that there are 2 administrators that support the program here. Now, she might have, I don't know, 3 college students that are paid out of summer grant funds, but she might have an additional 3 college students that are paid from another funding source, and so on and so forth. Again, if you need some assistance with this, please let us know, because we're happy to help walk you through this. And just so we have another person joining us, sorry. Just so I don't keep flitting back and forth, I'm just going to go ahead and continue to walk through this spreadsheet. So we're kind of jumping ahead on the slides a little bit, but that's okay. So here you can see, and again, this form needs to be updated because it's from the previous school year. So I guess I'll make a note to myself to get that done. We'll want to know how many kindergartners all the way up through 12th grade or graduated students that you have in your program. And again, keep in mind, use the school year grade that they just completed. Of those kids, then, we want to know how many attended less than 30 days. And we have the additional breakdown of days on here because some sites will hold numerous summer opportunities. The likelihood of having over 90 days in the summer obviously is almost 0. But we do have some sites that would fall into this 30 to 59 range. I don't know as if we have any sites that really go much over that, but again, if that's an option for you, you can indicate as such. And then here's where you would track your demographic data and your population specifics. So I'm going to stop there for just a moment. I'm going to head back to the PowerPoint.
Crystal, go back up to the programs in the spreadsheet, if you would. You know, the program offerings, you know, those are categories. And when you're working in the APR, you don't have to have something for every one of those categories. That's just the different areas that you're approved to work in for after school. And I don't think there's only a few people that do most of them. We want you to do as many as you can for variety. But for example, if you don't do something for drug prevention, that's not going to be a black mark on your record. You just maybe didn't have that need. Or truancy, maybe you've got kids coming in every day. You don't have to worry about truancy prevention. So that's a good thing. But you want to have literacy. That's, you know, that's something we expect because that's our state focus. And it's also a federal focus.
Yes. that's a good point, Vic, and I'm glad you brought that up, because you may also have different items, more than one program may fit a category as well. So what I mean by that is you may have, I'll just use arts and music as an example. Perhaps you have, I don't know, an art group from a local college that comes in, but you also have a youth-led art group, and you have a ukulele club or something like that. All three of those would be combined in that arts and music category. But when you think about that, maybe ukulele club only meets once a month and everything else happens once a week. We would just ask that you do your best to try to capture the amount of time and the amount of kids that are being served within that particular program. So try to generalize as best you can. And again, if you need some assistance with that, just let us know. And Caitlin, I saw that you joined the meeting. Thank you very much. And I also just got your email. So thank you very much for letting us know. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions at any time.
There's another area that we should probably touch on. When I do a site visit and I'm asking you what kind of activities you do, what I will ask you for is your calendar. Everybody puts out a program calendar, and in that calendar we see what's being offered, and we, it shows the frequency. This, spreadsheet provides a little more detail, but it's used for the federal data collection. And so when I come out on a site visit, I'm a little bit more informal than the feds are. So I don't want you to get nervous when you hear about a site visit coming up.
Right. The calendar that you put together can also be a great tool to kind of jog your memory as you're going back into the APR to say, what did we do for entrepreneurship? Oh yeah, we had Inventors Club that met during this time, or something of that nature. So the calendar can be a useful tool for site visits, obviously, but it can also be a useful tool to help you with your APR data collection. So I would recommend that. That was a nice tool to have. The third part of data collection, again, during a normal time, would be our outcomes. And for this one, we're really talking about state assessment data. We're talking about teacher survey data, and we're talking about grades from fall to spring. So again, let me head back to the spreadsheet. Hope I'm not making anybody sick with this hopping back and forth here. So down here on this first tab is where we start talking about our outcomes. And again, you'll have to take this data from the spreadsheet and put it into the APR, but this is just a nice place for you to collect your information. So you'll be looking here, you can see state assessment, you'll have participants reported. We talk about math proficiency in this particular area. Our teacher survey will want to know how many surveys were distributed and then returned. And then we're looking specifically at some of that behavioral data about, was homework completed and class participation improved? And how did where was student behavior improvement at? And again, you can see the breakdown for number of days there too. And then finally, the grades, which not all, especially because we have such a strong elementary school focus, not all elementary schools, of course, issue grades. So some schools have used the FAST scores, or they have used the some kind of a district assessment. You'll just want to be sure that whatever you are using for that, you have a conversation with Vic to make sure that that's an agreed upon source of data for you. So grades fall to spring, what we're looking at here is how many students needed to improve versus how many did improve. Vic, is there anything that you want to specifically address with our outcomes?
Well, I'm pretty flexible in terms of if you need to use a different assessment, and we have a variety of them, and I accept them all. we're looking at, a brief picture in time, and we're looking to capture progress that a student is making. Another thing is the behavior. We do the teacher surveys, and then in year 3, when you have a comprehensive visit, I will generally have a conversation with the principal, and I'll ask them about referrals. That's a little bit hard evidence that the program's making a difference. And the good news is, the overwhelming majority of principals report to me that there's a dramatic decrease in referrals when we put in a program. So that's good news. And eventually the APR is going to change, and my suggestion was that we eliminate the teacher survey and capture principal referral data as better quality. So
Right.
we'll see what happens.
But for right now, we have the teacher survey, and that's where we have to use that. So, okay. Does anybody have any questions about the spreadsheet? And again, you can use the chat box, or you can simply unmute yourself and ask those questions that way.
I do have a question for you. So looking at this is specific, this right here, the outcomes. Is this specific to summer school? I mean, is there teacher surveys for the teachers for summer and homework completion too? Or how is that, what does that look like for summer?
That's a great question, Alyssa. So the short answer is no. We don't expect you to issue a teacher survey for summer programming. So much of the outcome data is going to be a duplication of what you had collected for spring. Vic, is there anything that you can think of that we should clarify with that though?
Well, we do have some programs that are summer only. And in that case, they're going to have to do a teacher survey because that's the only time that they have. And they may not be getting a large number of teachers, just the ones that are participating in the program.
Right.
And, that's okay. We're still complying with that requirement. But normally you would just use once a year, do a teacher survey, and not during summer.
Yeah. And again, we generally recommend that you do that teacher survey in the spring so that you have it for your APR spring data collection. I would also recommend giving your teachers enough time to complete that, because the goal is to have a teacher survey for every student in the program. So if you're serving 100 kids, that could be a bit of a daunting task for those teachers. So keep that in mind. You might want to think about issuing that perhaps at the beginning of May so that they have enough time to complete that before the end of the school year, which would typically happen, the beginning of June. So any other questions about the spreadsheet?
On a positive note, we've reduced that teacher survey a lot in the last few years. So it's it's just a few questions now. It used to be a big collection of questions, so it's much easier.
It was 12 or 15.
Yeah. So for this past school year, since we ended school in the middle, as far as teacher surveys and spring grades to compare to their fall ones, how does that look for our evaluation and stuff?
Yeah, if you hold on for just a second, Megan, okay. We're going to talk about that in the next couple of slides. So, okay. So, unless there's any other questions about normal times, I think we'll go ahead and start talking about COVID-19 data collection. Okay, and again, feel free to interrupt. We can always go back. Okay, so now here's the deal though, right? Because now we have COVID-19 that we have to work through or deal with. So first and foremost, unless something has changed in the last couple of hours, and I don't think it probably has. We're still waiting for some guidance regarding APR data entry. And I know Vic has said as soon as he is able to share some of those changes or information out, that will be done so. We do know that there will be a place in the system to indicate that you did not have a summer program, and that will not be held against your site. Likewise, when you're thinking about spring data, there's going to be some type of accommodation or modification to the APR system, because again, everybody knows that schools were not in session during the spring. So there will be more information or guidance to come about that. You may be asked to provide some information as best you can from, you know, the beginning of the semester in January through March 15th, 16th, whenever school was halted, I guess, for lack of a better word. And you also may be asked to provide either number evidence or anecdotal evidence as to any activities that you did virtually through the spring and possibly summer. But again, we'll certainly have more information about that as it comes to fruition. So
yeah, let me talk about that and give everybody a, you know, kind of the big picture. The feds have created 2 data entry windows. One is right now, and that actually started May 26th, and it runs to July 13th. And then there's a second, then that's for summer data, then for last year. Then fall is July 14th through August 17th, and then spring is August 18th through August 31st. And then there's a second window that starts September 15th through October 26th for summer 2019, and then fall October 27th to December 21st, and then spring December 22nd to February 2021. I think in Iowa, we're going to be mostly using that second window. A lot of people don't have access to their buildings or the data. And let me tell you why they had 2 windows. There are some states with electronic systems, and they have data to submit. And so they're going to be using that first window, and the summer data and the fall data will be aggregated, and they're going to send that into Congress, because Congress is going to be deciding whether or not to renew our program, and they've been doing that for the last few years. And so that's very important that we are able to send them some data. The second window will be for, you know, states like Iowa, where we don't have a big data system and everybody's entering their data locally, and that is going to give you some more time. So I want you to do the best you can. They're also going to have questions that will ask you about the impact this pandemic had on your programs, and it's going to look a little bit different. And if you don't have a certain set of data because there was no assessment available, you'll be able to check, you know, not available. So
right.
I don't want you to get too worried. I want you to do the best you can, but we do need that data because, you know, this goes to Congress, and it's very important that we have both of those windows.
Right. Don't worry if you missed those dates that Vic shared out. You know, Vic is good about sending those out through email, and when he has that information and knows a little bit more about what's happening and how it affects us specifically, I'm sure he'll be sending those specific dates out to site directors. So as Vic said, data is vitally important to the 21st century program. But again, in this very strange time we're living in, we know that we will be missing some of that data. So as he just said, you know, there's going to be some places or fields within the APR system to indicate that you don't have that data due to the COVID-19 pandemic. They are working on ways to collect more of that anecdotal data. And also EMRS and the evaluation committee will also be working on some changes to the statewide evaluation survey and templates, so that we'll be able to better tell our stories through anecdotal data as compared to numbers, hard numbers in a traditional year. So as Vic just said, do your best, track what you can at this point. If you can try to get some attendance and demographics, if you can try to record some of the activities that you're doing, that'll all be great. I know that many of you are using virtual platforms to do kind of like STEM at home, or logging some professional development hours and so on and so forth. Just do your best to keep track of all of that for you and your staff, so that you can, when it comes time to report, you have some things that you can fill in on those documents.
Yeah, let me just say another thing is we have a lot of support in place for you when you're doing the APR. If you run into a problem, email me or email Tim Glenn. During this pandemic, we've had to suspend our offer of coming to the DE and we'll help you in person. However, we can do a Zoom meeting and you can share your screen with us, and Tim and I will guide you through your data entry if you need that help. It's a pretty easy system, but we want you to not get all frustrated with the data entry, because sometimes that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and thank goodness for whoever developed Zoom, because I know they've made my life a lot easier these last couple of months. So, okay, any questions about the tracking before we move on to talk about normal activities? Okay, so during the summer, sites, you are obviously still expected to incorporate academics into your daily program routine. I mean, this is a title program, and our focus is improving academics for youth. However, I think you will also find that the summer approach could be a bit more relaxed. And I've put some examples up on this screen about ways to incorporate some academics into more perhaps free-flowing activities. Because again, during the summer months, you may have the kids for extended hours, and you may have opportunities to incorporate more of this kind of relaxed learning environment. So examples of ways that you can incorporate academics into some fun activities would be things like outdoor educational activities like gardening or nature exploration. You could consider field trips that include an academic prep component. So a trip to the zoo, park, a museum, something like that, that maybe the kids do, some assessment or research or something like that on prior to the trip and even following the trip. Physical games are a good idea that have those educational components. So spelling word basketball. So instead of playing horse, you play horse with a spelling word list. Sight word kickball is another favorite one. You are all very creative in how you do that. And then, of course, the last bullet here is lots of STEM. Summer seems to me, STEM is perfect year-round, but summer seems to open the door for lots and lots of STEM activities. Now, how our activities could potentially be changed due to COVID. So, again, referring back to the guidance, so Governor Reynolds opened up summer school and summer programs to officially be open June 1st. Sites are still encouraged to practice those safety measures. And again, please refer to that email that Vic sent out on the 21st. Just another quick reminder, if you did not receive that and would like to have a copy of that guidance, let me know and I'll be happy to forward the document to you. And as with everything connected to this world that we live in right now, additional guidance may be coming at some point. So as those become available, we'll be sure to get those shared out with you. So you may need to consider, you may need to consider incorporating more outdoor activities, but you may be limited. So for example, you might not be able to take field trips this summer due to social distancing. Outdoor activities can be good because when you're outdoors, you can keep your numbers better in check, and you're distancing between youth and staff in a more comfortable manner. So you may need to get creative with that. And then we also just want to generally remind you that if you need to purchase masks, hand sanitizer, cleaning products necessary for programming, things like that, those are all allowable expenses because, again, you know, our priority is working on academic growth for kids, but obviously we want to keep kids safe. So any questions about activities? Okay, so we'll move on to program hours. So again, during normal operation, sites are required to meet for 30 days in the summer months. So this is different from the school year. School year is an hour-based program. We encourage sites to schedule more than 30 days. So for example, you might want to consider scheduling 35 days of programming. And the reason for that is because, again, cancellations, like for weather and such, are probably less frequent than they are in the months of January, February, and March here in Iowa, but it does happen. You may have a water main break at your site, or the building has to be closed down because the air conditioning broke or something, you know. So by scheduling over 30 days, it just kind of helps to ensure that you have that opportunity to meet with those kids. The other thing I would say about normal program hours is this is fairly flexible in the summertime, so it could mean morning, afternoon, evening, weekends. As long as you're meeting the 30-day requirement, you should be fine.
Let me address that 30-day requirement so you get a sense of where this is coming from. Number one, the system doesn't allow you to count kids unless you've had them for 30 days. So that's a big reason to do that. And the reason the system is like that is there's research behind the amount of time it takes to reduce the summer slide. And that research was what made the feds say that if you didn't do 30 days, we don't want to count it. And programs that are doing more than 30, you know, have told me that they've noticed that it's a little bit better for the kids. So it's a nice formula for success for children.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, so your program hours during COVID-19, how this is going to be affected. As Vic mentioned earlier in the presentation, we're a local control state. So your hours this summer will depend on the decision made by your district or your administration. So we know that some of our 21st century sites across the state are holding limited in-person dates. We know that some sites are supplementing with virtual engagement, and this could be in addition to those in-person, or it could just be 100% virtual. We know that some sites are waiting to coordinate with their school district's return to learn plan. And we know that some sites are not holding programming at all. And again, if that was the decision made by your district or administration, then that was the decision made. And when it comes time to do that reporting, that will not be held against you. So, but again, please try to collect some of that other type of data, the anecdotal data that you might have. You might want to consider tracking the number of virtual offerings you have, the number of kids who are participating in those virtual offerings. It's just going to look a little bit different this year.
So I have a question. Our Cedar Rapids isn't letting us in our schools this summer, and that's where both of our sites are. But we have two other club sites that we are going to open up to our families after the normal kid, like the regular kids that go to those sites. If our kids from Hoover and Taylor go to our other 2 sites, should I track them for the summer, or should I, you know, if we only have like 5 go from Taylor and 5 go from Hoover, should I track like those 10 kids if they do a summer program, or how should I do that? Should I not record them and just say we didn't have a program?
Well, are you going to use 21st century funds for those kids?
I will have to. So if we use funding for them, then I can track the 10 of them?
Then you have to track them, yeah.
Okay, it'd be a small
It's
program.
going to be community funds, and you're not going to use the 21st century. You're going to do carryover, and you don't have to worry about the reporting part, just so you didn't run a program.
Okay.
Yeah. Vic, one more question that popped into my head to Megan's question is, previously, again, in a normal year, if you had to move your site specifically for summer, or, you know, because sometimes we had situations where buildings were maybe having some work done or something like that, we had asked sites to just simply email a request to you to say, we'd like to move the XYZ 21st century program to this site for the summer due to this condition. Would you like sites to still to do that this summer?
Absolutely. Now, technically, you're supposed to do a formal amendment if your location changes. But I've made a deal with the DE, and the deal is, if you email me, that counts as a temporary amendment for a location change, because this is pretty common over the summer. And
Right.
I don't like extra paperwork. As long as I know about it and you sent me an email, you are covered.
Okay. So thank you for that clarification. And does anybody have any follow-up questions to that point? Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about quickly is virtual learning. If your site is going to engage in virtual learning, there's tons of resources out there. Both the National After School Alliance and the Iowa After School Alliance, I feel, have done a really nice job of highlighting and making available to people virtual learning experiences and opportunities. I have highlighted a couple of webinars that have been recorded. They're each about an hour's worth of content and could be beneficial to help guide you in your choices or decisions that you're making about virtual experiences. The first can be found on the iowa21cclc.com website under Best Practice Webinar. And then the second, in central Iowa, which is to say Polk, Dallas, and Warren counties, we have what's called the SIOS initiative. SIOS stands for Central Iowa Out of School Time. And if you visit that website, they have been these 3 enrichment coaches, which some of you may remember from past professional development trainings and whatnot. So we have Hannah Moores, Mallory Reesberg, and Teresa Slaughter. They have put together a weekly professional development offering called SIOS Reimagined. And if you visit that website and under the resources tab, about halfway down the page, you'll find recordings. The most recent one that they did was called Planning for a Virtual Summer. And we actually invited some 21st century sites along with non-21st century sites in the central Iowa area to be able to provide some, it's done in a panel, and those people were able to provide some inputs and insights about things that they're doing and working well, so that you don't necessarily have to do kind of the hard knocks learning type of thing. So again, this training will be posted later, but again, these links can be accessed on those websites. It might be worth a couple hours of your time to be able to hop on there and take a look at that. These are a few other virtual resources, just in a general list form. If you're not familiar with some of these, maybe just do a quick Google search for them so that you do become familiar. But we have everything on this list from Kahoot to Google Classroom. MindWorks is a program that Kathy Gerst uses down in Burlington, and she absolutely loves it. And then the last thing that I would say is don't forget to check out the Iowa After School Alliance newsletter and our biweekly special COVID-19 bulletin, which includes additional resources and links. So the COVID-19 special bulletin that we've been sending out biweekly, towards the bottom of that has many, many options and offerings that you can do with youth virtually. So just consider that as well. All right, does anybody have any questions for today?
Crystal,
Yes.
I wanted to share that Google has added some Google Site templates specifically for doing virtual learning. I can
Great.
send you a link to that if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be great. It would be a good resource for people to have. I'm going to go back to the slide for just a second here. Google Access is something that I was not familiar with until, well, last week, to be very honest with you. This is a way that you can log on to another person's computer virtually. So this one might be helpful if you have a family situation in which, you know, maybe the youth is struggling to navigate the screen, or you might even be working with a family member whose computer literacy skills are not, you know, top notch. They can, if they get into the Google Access platform, they can give you control so that you can control that mouse on their screen, which is kind of interesting, I think. I know anytime I have tech support take over my computer, it's slightly frightening to me too, but it is something that I wanted to be able to make sure that you guys understood. Okay, so again, questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, it looks like we lost Julia somewhere along the way, but that's okay. I understand people have busy schedules, so. Okay, so ladies, we have used our hour, and gentlemen, sorry. We've used our hour. If there are no questions, I will bid you happy Thursday. And as always, don't be afraid to reach out to Vic or myself. We'll do our best to get you the information you need, answer your questions, make connections. That's why we're here for you. And I would just, again, thank you for your time today and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.